So, we've been talking about Hongzhi for the last several Saturdays. And today we're going to finally begin our study of probably his most important text, the one we just chanted during our service this morning, Guidepost of Silent Illumination. So I've got a twofold purpose here. It'll be a fairly close reading of this text. But at the same time, I don't want to get bogged down just looking at the text. I want to make sure, as is my practice, is to make sure that we're connecting this to lots of other things. So be prepared. But to begin with, the title of this piece, Guidepost of Silent Illumination. So silent illumination is what traditionally in Buddhism was referred to as meditation, and how meditation brings together samatha, or concentration, and illumination, also known in the Theravada world as vipaśyanā, insight. That's what illumination is pointing to, is we see things intuitively. And we use the term illumination simply because we're using visual metaphors here in terms of deep spiritual insights. So Dogen, of course, a century after Hongzhi, lays out the Zen style of practice that he was bringing back from China as being grounded upon the practice of Zazen. Well, that's exactly what this title is saying, that silent illumination is the guidepost of silent illumination. So for we spiritual seekers who are trying to understand reality in its totality, not just individual slices, which we get educated to understand and gain experience with. So we're well versed in dealing with individual things. And we know where to go to learn more about it. And it's generally not to spiritual figures. It's to figures that have studied in depth these individual things. But for folks like us who are looking for some understanding of the whole picture, holistic understanding might be the more contemporary term we might use, then we're looking for a guidepost. How do we find that? Because there's nothing seemingly in our experience and in our education that's really going to be up to that challenge. So we're looking for guidance. Theistic traditions provide that guidance by conveying what a higher power has communicated to us. Some take that literally, and some take it figuratively. And the figurative way of understanding it isn't too far removed from what we're looking at here, the Guidepost of Silent Illumination. So Zazen, in other words, is our guidepost. That's why in our tradition, we spend so much time doing Zazen. Including the 10 minutes of Kinhin, we had 70 minutes this morning of that. And my talk will be considerably less than that. That's a good balance, I think. So that's our guidepost. Far more than talks I give here. Hopefully the talks help to deepen your zazen, which then in turn deepens your insights into the Dharma, which I can maybe with any luck be able to kind of create openings for you. But the real guidepost is silent illumination. The other major point I wanted to talk about in connection with the title is that we can see silence and illumination as these two separate things. And there's an element of truth to that, but we have to be very careful here, because silent illumination is really pointing to one practice, what we call zazen. So we don't divide zazen into different parts. That's the beauty of that term versus silent illumination. That term seems to already be dividing it. It's like calling it samatha vipaśyanā practice. Oh, you're bringing two pieces together. But they're actually so interdependent that they're effectively intertwined. Another way of approaching this is to see the role that silence plays in creating opportunities for illumination. Silence is becoming, it's not external silence. And this is another point that should be made here, because when we hear silence, we think, oh, you've cleared the environment of all other sounds. That's silence, when I'm not hearing anything. That's not the silence we're talking about here. It's not subtracting anything out. Silence is up here. And actually up here is everything because of this interconnectedness. But we know the difference between a noisy mind and a quiet mind. And the fact that they have very little connectedness to the level of noise exterior to us. So the noisy mind is the monkey mind. And you could have that in silence. In fact, with external silence, for people who don't practice zazen, it seems to activate the monkey mind. And then you're not experiencing silence at all. You're being bombarded by thoughts. Whereas to a practitioner, it could be in what externally a pretty noisy environment. Many Zen centers are located in the hearts of busy cities. Cleveland Buddhist Temple, where we used to practice on Euclid Avenue. We're kind of lucky here, except in the fall when the leaf blowers get fired up. But otherwise, it's pretty quiet. And Dogen does say in Fukan Zazengi that for practicing zazen, a quiet room is suitable. So he's acknowledging that it's nice to have some silence externally, but it's not the critical matter. That even when we find ourselves in a noisy scenario, we can still enter into silence with our mind. In fact, when I'm teaching meditation and we're in a noisy environment, what I instruct people to do then is put your focus on the sound. Then all of a sudden, the sound, rather than being a hindrance, becomes part of the silence. You can kind of flip it. That's very doable. So understand, it's important to understand silence as this ability to be focused, concentrated. That's what silence is referring to. And when we're focused, it means letting go of thoughts, because thoughts are what pull us away from our focus. To the degree that we gain the capacity to open the hand of thought, to let them go, we find that we can more readily enter into true silence. So if we're in a noisy environment, the main noise isn't the sound itself, it's the mind's response to the noise. Saying, damn, can't we have a quiet room to meditate in at least? So we're creating the noise and blaming it on the external sound. But actually, it's our creation. And once we've entered into that space of silence, there is other terms that get used are serenity, tranquility, calmness, because you begin to appreciate the power of the mind and its connection to all of these other states that are both physical and mental. So we also, through this practice of silent illumination, begin to approach directly the union of what we call mind and body. That when we're agitated, it's not just a mental thing. We feel it in our body too. So that's why when I'm teaching meditation, that's why I tell them that the posture is so important, because it's a posture that supports both our relaxation, but at the same time, our vigilance, our attentiveness. If we just wanted to relax, we'll just lay down, right? Maybe take a nap. But we don't want to do that. That's not meditation, of course. We want to be very vigilant. So the way we do that is we sit upright, because we're in alignment with gravity now. We can hold a good upright posture where we're fully grounded. We can hold such a posture for quite an extended period of time without needing to move. And if the body moves, the mind moves. So it's important to have a posture that you can hold, to enter into this silent space that's always there for us. We're not really creating it. We're just opening ourselves to it. It's there, always. So in our home practice, when we get up in the morning, and I think for many of us, that is the time of day, when we get up and we go to sit, that's kind of what we're doing. And it's important to have that in mind, that we're entering into this silence that's already there. I'm not creating it. I'm just allowing myself to experience it and to go more deeply into it. But it's there. It's there. Just like the illumination is. And the illumination appears through that silence. Because if our mind is bouncing around, that's kind of the hallmark of that, is nothing is illuminated. Maybe it's easier to see in the realm of sound. It would be like just static. It's kind constant buzzing at a pretty high volume. You couldn't hear individual sounds with any clarity in that kind of an environment. So the same thing is going on in terms of our busy mind. There's no illumination. There can't be. But when we're focused, when we're really present in stillness, in silence, now things become illuminated. We're not shining a light on them. We're actually receiving the light. And there are metaphors further on about, comparing like the moon in a dewdrop of grass. We're the dewdrop. And the moon is enlightenment. It's the illumination, what we are able to see because of the silence. And of course, the illumination, as is the case with all of our practice, it feeds back into the silence. I think we've all experienced this when we're having a sitting where we're experiencing illumination. Our ability to experience that quiet, the serenity, the calmness, and the focus becomes greater. So they work together hand in hand. We could talk about them individually, but it's really one thing. They're so deeply interconnected. So that's the title. Guidepost of Silent Illumination. Or in Dogen's phrasing, Zazen is the practice. It's the fundamental way. So the opening line basically just states what I've been saying with reference to the title. Silent and serene, forgetting words, bright clarity appears before you. And serenity is kind of just another aspect of silence. True silence, silence of the mind, creates a state of serenity. Because where are our worries and our angers found? In our thoughts. And thoughts are words. And that's really kind of the substance of words are thoughts. They're conveying thoughts. So that's why it's so important in our Zazen practice to be able to let go of thoughts. I've also taught that, if you see words popping up in your mind, because we generally think in terms of words. Maybe artists probably see things a little differently, and musicians, but even there, things get translated very quickly into words, because that's our common currency of thought. So that's kind of an easy way to set off the alert that a thought is coming up is as soon as words are coming up in your mind. To come back to your object of focus. So that's what forgetting words is, and also keep in mind that words are our way of creating distinctions between things. That's the hallmark of words. Words are about being able to distinguish this from that. And once we've done that, then we assign words. And that becomes a feedback loop as well. The words reinforce our distinctions. So that's why it's so powerful, like in the political realm, the use of language to reinforce differences. They could also be used to bring us together. And they can have that power, but they're especially powerful in terms of creating distinctions, because that's kind of their whole driving force. So we can also kind of from this connect forgetting words to the beginning of the faith in mind. Attaining the way is not difficult for those who avoid picking and choosing. Picking and choosing is this act of distinguishing. I like this. I don't like that. And if that's kind of our driving force, that's the source of dukkha. So just avoid picking and choosing. And that's at the heart of zazen, being fully present with whatever's coming up without judging mind. And if we're not judging, that's most of the way towards this practice of forgetting words. So when we do that, enter into this focused state of mind and let go of thoughts, which equates with forgetting words, then bright clarity or illumination appears before you. Because you can see things far more clearly, beginning with our thoughts, what we're going to let go. We have to see them to let them go. And they have to appear with some clarity so I know, oh, a thought has come up. Because in our normal state of mind, we're not seeing that. That's just part of our environment. Of course, thoughts are coming up. And they just kind of have a life of their own then. So part of this bright clarity is just seeing the very thoughts that we're going to let go. Doesn't have to become just the deep insights into the true nature of things. Deep insights into things like interdependence. Although they will also be able to appear because we've entered into this state of silent illumination. So this is where spiritual insights become possible. And through this practice, we can cultivate them. Coming back to the title of Taigen's book, Cultivating the Empty Field. We're cultivating these dharma gates, which are the gates into the empty field that are everywhere. We're always entering into the empty field. But we have to have silent illumination of the mind in order to enter those dharma gates. We just have to have awareness. So the next line, when you reflect it, you become vast. And where you embody it, you are spiritually uplifted. So it's interesting to me that he uses the terms when and where. When, of course, speaking of time, the temporal realm, and where, speaking of space, the spatial realm. And yet, I think these are probably reversible, so I don't think there's anything that's indicating that reflection is a temporal phenomenon and embodiment is a spatial. I think they're obviously in both realms. They happen in both the temporal and the spatial realm. But just something as I was going through this a little more deeply that kind of jumped out at me. But this act of reflecting it So this is an important quality of the mind for the Zen practitioner, is the ability to reflect and to give what we'll call a true unblemished reflection. Now, the reflection itself may have blemishes in terms of what's being reflected, but in terms, yeah, and we can think of funhouse mirrors that are designed to distort, for instance. And sadly, it's possible to create out of the human mind a distorted mirror. It used to be known as brainwashing. Now it's known as social media. Yeah. Same thing. So we're all Manchurian candidates. But when you reflect it, you become vast, because there's that magical Zen term, it, as in just this is it. The famous Dongshan term that was passed down to him by his teacher. Just this is it. And we gain access to that insight by reflecting it. And this reflecting of it is pointing to the fact, just like the moonlight reflected in a dewdrop of grass, no matter how small it is, it's not a matter of size. That the moon is vast, and it's always vast. So our spiritual insight, the illumination, allows us to actually have the intuitive vision, I'll call it, of boundlessness, shunyata, the vast web of interdependence, not just the interdependence of 2 or 3 or 4 or 100 things, but the Indra's net, the boundless net, without boundaries, which the eye, the perceptual mind, can't grasp. We can create a term infinite, but the mind doesn't really understand that. It's like $100 trillion. We can. It's a number, but we don't understand that. What the hell is that? It has no real meaning to us. So obviously, if that's the case with in astronomical terms, a rather small number, 100 trillion, geez, that's nothing in terms of the size of the universe. So if we can't even handle that, how can we possibly handle boundlessness? So when you reflect it, you become vast, is the entry point into understanding the emptiness of all things. Kind of one of the core insights of this practice. We're reflecting it. And we reflect it through the practice. The fact that form is emptiness, emptiness is form. We're reflecting this with everything we encounter when we're practicing. That's why Dharma gates are boundless. Everything I encounter is empty, which means in its essence, it's boundless. I'm boundless. And this becomes something, because I'm boundless, I know it's always there for me to practice with. I don't have to go somewhere. Boundlessness doesn't live here. It's everywhere I'm going to go today. So I can make vows to practice in such a way that I have that ongoing insight into the boundlessness of all things. That's to embody it, which goes on to the second part of that line. So reflecting it, we become vast. Embodying it, you're spiritually uplifted. So embodying it, for me, simply means it does become part of our life. We make it real through our practice. And in doing so, we're spiritually uplifted because we're seeing it constantly because of our practice. So rather than just doing the bouncing up and down, to borrow from Christianity and their same problem where, the Sunday practitioners, and then it drops down for the next 6 days, and then they're going to embody it for Sunday morning and then back down again. So to embody it and be spiritually uplifted, is to, over time, it will still have the peaks and valleys, but continuous practice, as advocated by Dogen, means that you can actually remain spiritually uplifted constantly. But that's the important role of vow. We have to really practice with discipline in order to do that. Because as Ringo Starr had the realization, it don't come easy. So it takes a lot of practice. So the next line, spiritually solitary and shining, inner illumination restores wonder. So the spiritually solitary is kind of a way of presenting to us the fact that this is a personal practice. This fact it's solitary. But spiritually, also, of its very nature, points to the holistic. So spiritually solitary is really kind of like the harmony of difference and unity. And that's where the shining, the illumination occurs, is through this spiritual solitary practice. And the shining, of course, is illumination. So this inner illumination, which we speak of as inner because there's this solitary aspect. Inner, is kind of pointing to solitary. There's inner and outer. Inner illumination restores wonder. And we come back regularly to this aspect of wonder. And the role that it plays in our practice. It's kind of, I'll call it a side effect of practice. That we suddenly find ourselves within our environment, within our regular daily experience, experiencing the sense of wonder because we're seeing things holistically in their vastness. And the simplest things can all of a sudden, seen in a certain light, become sources of wonder. It doesn't require a trip to Grand Canyon. Although that's another beautiful source of wonder, or Muir Woods, or any of the great things in nature. But for me here in Cleveland, I can settle for Holden Arboretum. I'll go out there and experience wonder at nature and its vast web of interdependence. But to have that experience regularly of wonderment. And it's not just nature. I mean, even people. And I can become misanthropic when I read the paper. But I mean, people are these beautiful beings. So there's a great source of wonder to be derived from them at all ages. We tend to think children because there's something more primal there. We haven't completely conditioned it out of them. Maybe when they hit adolescence, they become less of a wonder. Except you wonder, when the hell are they going to outgrow that stage? But yeah, the sense of wonder is a natural result of touching boundlessness, the infinite, which is what the emptiness of things is pointing to. And I think with that, I'm going to stop my piece of this here this morning so we have a chance to discuss it a bit before we chant out. So including the title, that means we've covered 4 lines, and I figured we're probably going to be on that kind of a pace here, 4 or 5 lines each Saturday. So I think I was accurate in that estimate. So I'll bow out and open the floor. Well, here, I thought we were going to just forget words. No. But John has some.
I was just going to say, when I read the phrase, and you explained it in a slightly different way, spiritually solitary, I immediately thought of Zazen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because that's what Zazen is.
Right.
Is that connection to everything. So we are solitary with everything.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yet, when we come together and practice together, it's kind of like,
aren't we still solitary?
We're still solitary, but it has an impact. Yeah. Most people, I think, feel that for sure. John?
So I think you brought up something that was tangential, and I'm sorry, but I'm going to pull on the tangential thread. And that is the environment in which we conduct meditation. And I've tried to eliminate this thought in my mind that maybe I'm at the checkout line and I say, well, this is an opportunity to meditate. I now see it as meditation, not practice, not separate from everyday life. So it's not really an opportunity to meditate, as it's just
It's something different. Yeah.
There.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's but getting to my actual question, which is there any benefit in trying to be the proverbial eye of the storm, to be in a difficult environment and meditate, to seek that out?
Yeah. Well, I think, how should I respond to that? Because there does become an intentionality to it, which is what I see you addressing, is having an intention when we're out and about to bring that. And I think that's kind of a good intention to have. It could be seen as being a corollary to the Bodhisattva vows. From beings are numberless, I vow to save them, and delusions are inexhaustible, I vow to end them, because we get caught up in that world of samsara and we get pulled right in too. And certainly dharma gates are boundless, I vow to enter them. You're saying that, well, dharma gates, because they're boundless, they're everywhere. So you're vowing to enter them, and the Buddha's way is unsurpassable, I vow to become it. That's how we can kind of, even though it's an idealization, but we can see that that would be the Buddha's way, what you're describing. So I think I would, to turn it into another aspect of practice, I'd say that's just carrying out the Bodhisattva vows. And it's a kind of skillful way of doing that. Yeah. Okay. Well, now John?
Yeah, just one more thing. This is peripheral, perhaps, but it's no secret I've struggled with what's going on in Minnesota. I happened to this morning, because I'm subscribed to Minnesota Zen Meditation Center's podcast.
Yeah.
There is a wonderful podcast by, and I'm going to have to read her name because it's Mayo O. Haberman Scher, and she is a past guiding teacher of MZMC, talking about how she has dealt with the last week. And I found it very helpful.
Yeah.
And I would suggest it to anyone.
Okay.
And I know you know this, but for those of you who don't know, our friend Ben Connolly is now the guiding teacher of MZMC. So,
yeah.
But that podcast was very helpful to me. And if anybody else is looking for how to deal with the violence and cruelty that's going on right now, it's a good place to start.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess I like to add in from the standpoint of emptiness and interdependence that to my mind, maybe even the bigger concern is what's already happened in Venezuela, and now saber rattling with Greenland, and the chaos that can create globally. So I think the world of dukkha, and I frankly see the foreign threats now as becoming the things that should be sending off alarm bells left and right. because it could get, the world could become literally like the burning house. So, yeah, not that. There are certainly many problems that we find ourselves mired in. And in my own ranking, I would even set that, I guess, not to pick and choose, but I have grave concerns, grave concerns. Aaron.
Since we're talking about this anyway, I just wanted to bring it up for anyone that doesn't already know that ICE have been in Cleveland for like the last few days. They were at the thrift store that I usually go to in Parma, racially profiling people and asking them for papers yesterday afternoon.
Okay.
So it does appear to be on our doorstep. And I also read that the deputy director of ICE is like stepping down and running for Congress in like Toledo area.
Yeah.
So it seems like we're kind of where they're swarming next.
Yeah. And Kimberly and I are registered to attend a afternoon workshop next Sunday by Cleveland Heights for immigrant rights. So we're certainly paying attention to that issue too. I just become concerned that actually the media, and this is one of the reasons I rely more on print media and literally don't use any of the other stuff. That what's happening in Minnesota, and it's not to downgrade its importance, but it's good business for all the networks, including the MSNBC. I mean, you're gonna keep feeding that thing because it's good for their ratings. And unfortunately, some of these other things, not so much. So it's that when it comes to the media, I mean, that is, it is a business, and to be perfectly blunt about it. They want to stir up passions because it's just like social media. I mean, that's what people are going to tune into. Just a reasoned response to what's happening. You can't find that, because that people are going to change the channel. So it just
You're saying if you're reasonable, they'll change the channel.
yeah. Be very blunt about it, because if that wasn't the case, you'd be seeing it. That's my proof. I don't have any other statistics, but whatever is going to attract viewers, they're going to put that on. And they have studied it. I haven't, but they have. So there's a lot going on.
I guess I would ask you, are you sure that print media doesn't just do that a little more slowly?
I mean, they're not immune to it, but the forces acting on them are different. They are. It's kind of, but there's certainly that aspect. But you do get some very well-reasoned pieces.
I mean,
And again, like anything, you have to become selective. And the big advantage for me with the print media is I can select. Whereas if I'm going to pull up the TV, I become entirely passive. It's whatever they're going to flash on the screen. Then I'm either changing the channel or turning it off. Yeah, and then it'd just be more of the same. So. All right, well, let's go ahead and chant out. May our intention equally penetrate every being and place with the true merit of Buddha's way. Beings are numberless. I vow to save them. Delusions are inexhaustible. I vow to end them. Dharma gates are boundless. I vow to enter them. Buddha's way is unsurpassable. I vow to become it.